Takeaway number one, no particular order, but we're starting with Brock Purdy because everything starts and ends with Brock Purdy anyway, right? Brock Purdy, this idea, and we've all seen this out there, and I'm not going to pretend like everybody says this. I hate when people do that. Everybody says. Not everybody's not saying one thing about Brock Purdy. There's a lot of people out there that believe in Brock Purdy at this point. There's a lot of people out there that think that Brock Purdy's a really good NFL quarterback. So you can't be like, everybody says this guy sucks. No, everybody does not say this guy sucks. But there are people out there who are projecting Brock Purdy to come crashing back to earth. And I've already seen it mentioned in a few different annuals. Well, if Brock Purdy suddenly remembers he's a seventh round quarterback, blah, blah, blah. In other words, if he has regression out of left field, if he somehow the bubble bursts, the clock strikes midnight, whatever way you want to say it, you're just saying, I don't think he's legitimate. And I think he's had 2 amazing years, and he could come crashing back to earth because, what we're seeing wasn't real. And that was, there was an awful lot of people. Come on, let's be honest about this. There were an awful lot of people at different points, maybe not very much now, but there were an awful lot of people early on who were in that camp of this is beginner's luck. He's off to a hot start. Come on, it's a game. He hasn't faced anybody twice. Then it was like, he hasn't faced a really good team on the road. And he hasn't beat anybody in the division. He hasn't faced anybody twice. He hasn't won a playoff game. I mean, seriously, we went through every single possible prove it thing with Brock Purdy. And the guy's 17-4 and been to the Super Bowl. But the question is, and the observation is, a lot of people think that Brock Purdy's coming crashing down to earth. And those people are going to be, again, wrong. That's not happening. He's not going to come crashing down to earth. If anything, he's actually improving. He's a little bigger, a little stronger, a little quicker, a little faster through his reads, a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit better. He didn't have the reps last year, the field reps. He had the mental reps and the film reps. He didn't have the field reps with any of his receivers. This year, he's coming off of an off season where he's had nothing but reps, and lots of reps with any receiver that wanted to go out and run patterns for him. And I'm sure many of his receivers, if not all of them, did exactly that. So, you're talking about a guy now who knows Pearsall and knows Cowing and knows JJ and knows Ayuk and knows Debo and knows, he knows all of these receivers really, really well. And so there's that, you got to be in sync. And that he's bigger, stronger, more in sync with his receivers. Brock Purdy is not in the regression mode. Brock Purdy is still in the ascension mode. He's still getting better. And I don't think there's any question about that. And to say otherwise, he went from being a rookie to having no off season. This was the first year he's had, experience and an off season. So I think it's very, very likely that Brock Purdy is going to have a better year, which means he's going to have a very good year because he had a really good year last year. I would say 4,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns, under 10 picks. That's where I'm at with Brock Purdy. But this idea that he's coming crashing down to earth or he's going to have some huge regression, not going to happen. This guy's improving. He's getting better. He's more in sync with his weapons. He has more weapons. They have better depth of talent on the offensive line. So that's bound to be a better unit than it was a year ago. So they averaged 30 a game last year. I think they're going to wind up scoring probably 30 a game, if not more, this year. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, and they're kind of connected, to be honest, is that the Niners, I mean, think about it. If you said what defines the 49ers, what's the defining characteristic of the Niners? Like nationally. You know, when you say any team, what comes to mind? You say Chiefs, you think of Mahomes. Immediately, Mahomes, Kelsey, Mahomes and Kelsey. When you think of the Niners, what do you think of? What's the first thing you think of? You think of all those weapons, right? I mean, Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, CMC, maybe not in that order, but the weapons. You think of the offensive weapons. The face of the 49ers is not there. You know, I think Nick Bosa is one of the great players in the league, but he's not the face of the Niners. Fred Warner is a great player. He's not the face of the Niners. I think the 49ers have a terrific young defensive backfield. None of those guys are the face of the Niners. The face of the Niners is McCaffrey or Kittle, Debo. You know what I mean? Those are the guys. Debo, it's Kittle, it's McCaffrey, it's Ayuk. The Niners skill position guys are the face of the franchise. And yet, when you go to Niner camp and you think of all the impressive young weapons that they have that aren't any of those guys. I mean, in this camp alone, I mean, I just named, first of all, that's already an incredible group of weapons, right? Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Juszczyk, CMC. You got that might be the best 5 eligibles in the game. That weaponry is awesome. That's an incredible group. Okay, so you have that's your starting group. But just in the last 4 days, Braden Willis looks like a ton. Looks like a ton. I mentioned this to Shanahan today, and he agreed. Jacob Cowing, now he's been hurt the last couple of days, so we'll have to find out. I mean, my big concern with Cowing and Pearsall is durability, and they're both hurt. Here we are, where it's July 27th, and they're both hurt. Now, hopefully, neither's hurt seriously. Supposedly, Pearsall's going to be back on Monday from his hamstring. And I don't know if Cowing is resting. He might not be hurt, but he hasn't played the last couple of days. But he looked incredible. He looked absolutely incredible 3 days ago. Wearing number 83 with the sleeves cut off, running routes like a 5-year vet. Great separation vertically. Making catches. I mean, just he looks good. He gives you what you need. Separation vertically. So Braden Willis looks like a player. Cowing looks like a player. Pearsall, in the mini camp before he went out with the hamstring, him and Purdy were clearly had worked together and had a little rapport going. Then there's Cody Schrader, who's a running back who has nice instincts and good explosive traits and can catch the ball and looks like he can be a return man. Knows how to run, knows how to read blocks. And then you've got Isaac Guerendo, who's 6'2", 225 with 4.3 speed. And it's like he had a couple of catches on the sideline in the first practice, and he just made one guy miss and ran down the sideline. And I thought to myself, if all this guy ever did was that, catch the ball in the flat, like as a fullback, and make somebody miss, and then just get down the sideline for a big play. If the only play he had in his arsenal was that play, he would add a tremendous amount to the offense. just because he's 6'2", 220 with 4.3 speed. Because the bottom line is when you have Kittle and Debo and Ayuk and CMC and you've got all this bevy of weapons, the fullback's getting one-on-one, coverage. You can't commit two guys to the fullback when you have all those weapons. So you've got your fullback isolated in space. Could you imagine what Shanahan could do with Isaac Guerendo isolated in space? It could be really, really scary because Guerendo moves like a much smaller player. I mean, he's just got a revved up engine. He's just fast. He's just big and just fast. You get him and he makes one guy miss and he gets 3-4 steps down the sidelines. He's gone at 227 pounds. That's a big boy rumbling at fast speeds. There aren't too many guys in the league that are close to 230 that can run 4.3s in the low 4.3s. And that's what Guerendo did, and that's what he does. And you saw it, if you were an SC fan, you saw it up close in the bowl game. There was an awful lot of Guerendo. Anyway, but he's another guy. So you got. I mean, you think about it. You got Braden Willis, Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall, Cody Schrader, Isaac Guerendo, and then Pline. I mentioned Pline. Pline's 6'8" with good hands, big hands, and he's making catches and he's athletic. He looks good. I mean, I can't wait to see them put on the pads and see what Pline has, but I think he could be a red zone monster. 6'8" former basketball player with 10.5-inch hands. He's a mechanical engineering major. I was just watching him today. There was one play. He's lined up on the right side of the formation, and the play calls for him to go in motion across the formation and basically reset himself from the right to the left side of the formation in the middle of the play. You have to have some football intellect, to be able to digest everything that is required of the tight end in this offense. There's just a lot that goes into the shifting and the motion and the pre-snap, trying to fool the opponent, trying to figure out what the mismatches are, trying to define coverage. And they use the tight end and the fullback a lot for those things. And so you got to be a smart player and to be in this Kyle offense. And you've got a guy there in Pline who's a very, very smart player. So that, to me, he is very intriguing, very intriguing. So, I mean, think about it right there. Takeaway number 2, you've got this deep group of weapons, and now you add 6 more weapons: Willis, Cowing, Pearsall, Schrader, Guerendo, Pline. 6 new weapons on a team that already had the best group of weapons in pro football. That's nice. I mean, the Niners have depth of their skill positions now. That's really, really good.